Hi guys, and in this video I'm going to be ranking all of the monster games. Now, if you don't know what they are, basically they're a group of games on a site named Crazy Games. Now, in one half of them you will actually play as the monsters, and in another half you're a human using them to fight for your will. Kinda like Pokemon, but weirder. There's one instance where you're actually a god sending them out to attack, but we'll get to that later. So without any more wait, let's get started. Today we'll be ranking Monster Life, Monster Box, My Monster Pet, Train and Flight, Monster Adventure, Monster Mash, Pet Trainer, Monster Trainer, Catching Game, Monsters Tactics, Monster Duel, and finally Monster World Fight Arena. In ninth place, what I say to be the worst monster game is Monster World Fight Arena. Now on the surface, the game idea doesn't sound that bad. You fight monsters in a first-person perspective, getting gear to become stronger and beat the bosses. But it's just so mindless. You have two hands that can hold weapons and a shield eventually. Unfortunately, all you end up doing is mashing the attack buttons. But to give the game credit, it does have multiple difficulty options. There not being that much of a point though, since you can't replay levels. Luckily, this is the only game like it, so there won't be any more of these kind of mashing games. Our next game is Monster Box. Now, Monster Box is a fine game, I'll give it that, but I always find it left in the crowd. I mean, it's just so mobile-y. Don't know if that's a real word or not, but I'm using it so tough dictionary. So what I mean by mobile-y is it's like those games where you have to use an attack and save something, most of the time a girl. But it's twisted that formula where you have to use different creatures, which are basically budget Pokemon, instead of powers, and you just fight to save yourself. Plus, it also adds you fighting against random people who are much harder than your usual battles. I mean, I don't want to keep bringing up Pokemon, but it's literally the trainers in the game. But also twisting the mobile formula even more, so it's obviously better than the last game, since that's a very low bar, but I wouldn't classify it as good. Seventh place goes to Monster Trainer Catching Game. Now this one is also a mobile-like one, but it is better in a few ways. First is that the controls feel a bit better and the overall gameplay is actually kind of fun. I know, crazy idea. So you do still fight for your life to survive, but now the levels are more refined and the game has more gradual difficulty. Unlike the last game, where the second stranger I fought was too hard to get past, and I would have had to actually play more of the game, which would have been horrible. This one also had better revolving and catching, plus the creatures are way cooler. There's stuff like a robot and a spider. I know it's not amazing imagination, but it's better than the last one. The best part of this game is it's a light that shows there's beginning to be more polished and better gameplay, which is amazing. Anyway, on to number 6. Now, Monster Tactics is a good game, but it isn't amazing. So this game stands out in the crowd a lot more than the other games. You see, it's not an adventure game or a mobile one, or even a fighting game. Instead, you place down the creatures from other games and try to beat the opposing player. Now, instead of making this an actual online game, they went the easy route and made you play against bots and just put random usernames and flags to make it look like you're playing with an actual person. There are a few different types of monsters, like healing, physical attacks, and ranged attacks. My biggest controversy with this game is that it can get a bit dull after about 10 to 30 minutes or so, and it starts to get a bit repetitive, which is a common trend I see with these games. The best thing about the game is all of the different monsters have different stats rather than most of the monsters that are the same evolution number perform about the same. Originally, I was planning to put this one in the top 3 or so, but then I played some more of the other games, and they were just better, especially the adventure ones, because they had more of an end goal to beat the big challenger at the end of the island or area. So overall, this one had to be number 6. Beginning the top 5 of the list is Monster Duel. Now, this game is another fighting game like Monster World Fight Arena. You're probably wondering how a fighting game got into the top 5 of the list, because the last one was so horrible. Well, you can freely move around now, and it's in third person so you can admire your character. But seriously, getting to move around is a blessing, since in the last game it was so damn boring. The game is still a bit mashy, but they made some healing powers, so you could go to a little healing circle you made and start regaining health. Plus, now there are weapons that you actually have to get close to the enemy for the attack to work. Another good thing is that you can swap all of the body parts around so you can combine any 4 abilities. Now, you're probably now thinking, why isn't this in the top 3? Well, it kind of has the same problem as Monster Tactics. I mean, the adventure games are just superior. They have hub worlds to explore, and you get to choose who you want to fight instead of following a batch of levels. So now the next games coming up after this one are all going to be adventure games. Finally, on to some epic games. So in Monster Adventure, the game kind of combines all of the previous genres of games into one. There's combat like Monster Duel and catching from the 2 mobile kind of games. But it adds in some of its own elements like choosing what you want to fight and hub worlds. Plus you get to play the big leaders without even fighting any of the other monsters. The problem is the monsters do the fighting part while you just watch. Luckily, there are a few potions to interact with the battle, like a healing one and a damaging one. So you could actually kill something without any monsters, but it would just take a long time. Now, after you fight the big bad person, you get to move on to the next island, which has stronger enemies so you can level up better, and a new set of leaders to take down. I find this the weakest of the adventure series, since it's just bland and you don't even get to train them or get to choose what they do to attack. Overall, pretty damn amazing game. In third place, we have Monster Mash Pet Trainer. This is one of the best monster games I've ever played, as you can see from where I'm ranking this. This game is a lot like the last one, but just more polished and with more and better features. Now first, let's get into the battling. This time, the monsters do still fight by themselves, but now you can interact with the battle a bit more than the last game, because now there are special attacks that you can use which deal more damage than what your normal monster's powers can do. Next thing to talk about is the hub world. Now, this hub world, in my opinion, is worse than the last game's one. This is because the game has way less enemies to fight, and you end up walking around way too much to find an opponent, while in Monster Adventure, you walk like 3 steps and boom! There's a battle right there. Another thing that made me put this game here is that the balancing is horrible. There was a level 0 enemy in Island 2, but other than that, the game is way better. Instead of evolving your monsters, you can upgrade its features like speed of attacking and how much health it has. Now, all of the games before this were quite easy to place in their spots, but in the top 3, it is quite hard for almost every ranking of anything ever. But anyway, on to what decides what monster game is the best one. It was a tough decision whether this or Monster Life was better, but I had to choose this to go into second place. Now, don't get me wrong, this game is amazing, but it's just not the best for me. But anyway, let's get into why this game is brilliant. Now, first thing to note out, you can now control the battles. Even though you only have 2 attacks, it's still amazing. They did remove the cool upgrading from Monster Mash Pet Trainer, but I don't really care too much. This game is also the only third-person adventure game in the Monster series. You can now train your monsters with a little mini game where you try and click when the indicator is in the green, and there are now 2 types of food. The donut, which heals your monster, and the burger, which helps your monster get stronger. The evolving from games is now earned from leveling up and not just buying it. A bad thing about it is you can only use a single monster in battle. So yeah, this game's description by me is a bit shorter than the other ones, but it is because I'm saving the space for number 1. Now, in my opinion, the best monster game is Monster Life. Now, the game is a bit laggy and a bit glitchy, but looking over that, this game is pretty damn good. Now, in this game, the combat still only has 2 attacks, but you can switch out your monsters in battle. So, you can basically have multiple lives, and with enough monsters, you can beat any leveled monster. Something amazing about this game is this is one of the first 3 of these monster games, and it's the best one. I just don't understand how this game stands out to be so much quality. There are also quite a few monsters to play with and fight. The evolving is about the same as the last game, but the level you need to be to evolve is 10 instead of 15. This is also the only first-person game in the Monster series, because Monster World Fight Arena is nothing to me and I will never say it exists. This game may not be the most polished or the most filled to the brim with content game, but it sure is the funnest one of them all. Peace. Thank you so much for watching, and please have an amazing day, and also make it safe. Peace.